What if Conway's Game of Life really was a game? That's the idea behind Hashwar. I invented a rule set that lets two individual Game of Life patterns compete on a shared space. These two square grids with the evolving patterns you see here, Balboa and Check This Charon, they are treated as game pieces in the Hashwar conflict. They fight each other for dominance on this torus. Game of Life patterns, especially those that are confined to a relatively small space, like in our grids, quickly fizzle out, which would make for boring conflicts. The goal is therefore to find such patterns that have high longevity, but it is anything but easy to find those patterns. I wrote my own scripts to find suitable patterns, but it was a real hassle to then upload them to my database so that I could make them compete in my conflict engine. Because the conflict engine runs in my browser already, I set up a user interface that lets me search for new patterns and submit them to my registry, from which I can later pull contestants for my Hashwar battles. Let me show you how this works. Alright, the first thing you want to do after signing up and logging in is check your registered glyphs. So let me move to login. Yeah, that's my test account Prometheus here. I'm going to check my registered glyphs. Naturally, you won't have any glyphs in there yet, but we will fill this up in no time. Navigate to the Glyph Foundry next. This is the actual mining engine that I mentioned earlier. Let's start on the left-hand side with the Seeker unit. The first thing you see here is to adjust the initial density range. Let me give you an example of what that means. Generate random seed. You can see the density of the alive cells here, that is between 20 and 60%, 40% here. There is a mathematical theorem out there that states the most long-term stable patterns evolve from initial densities around 37%, I think. So let's move the sliders between, well, let's say 25% and 40%. So here we go, random. Mining patterns for Hashwar is done in two stages. In stage 1, we seek random starting configurations that follow hash requirements. Mind you, this game is called Hashwar for a reason, because we calculate a hash string for our glyphs that determines some of its characteristics, most notably its intrinsic color. That's highlighted here, so I'll give you some ideas here how that looks like. For the time being, our weekly Hashwar series does not have any hash requirements yet, but it is conceivable that for future challenges and tournaments, we might require glyphs to fulfill certain requirements. For example, they have to start with quintuple zeros, for example. I think that's a pretty restrictive, requirement already, because our hashing thread is now running through thousands of hashes per second to check. It doesn't find, oh, okay, yeah, I found one here, quintuple. All your candidate patterns are submitted to the stage 1 pool, which can hold up to 100 patterns. So let's remove that. Let's go for that. I'm going to open up the pipeline. Stage 2, this is here at the bottom. This is where the actual rules for Conway's Game of Life come into play. For this, we have our 4 Explorer nodes that take candidates from the stage 1 pool and evolve them according to the Conway's rule set, for example, B3, S23. Now let's move to the top right-hand side. This is where you set filters for the patterns that you're looking for, most notably the generational count. That is the number of steps your Conway patterns evolve before reaching a halting state. As I said earlier, the vast majority of these patterns die out very quickly, and it is rare for patterns to survive hundreds of generations. The shortest lived glyphs we let compete in our tournaments have to have a generational count of at least 500, and they're also grouped into weight classes that are 100 generations wide. What does that mean? A glyph that lives between 500 and 599 generations, that will belong to weight class 500. If it lives between 600 and 699 generations, it will belong to weight class 600, and so forth. You can register patterns that do not live that long to your heart's content, but they just won't be eligible for our ranked Hashwar matches. To let the miner automatically hash, just open the pipeline here. There's a button here, but let me instantiate some filter criteria first. So we open the pipeline here. Once you have patterns in your second stage pool, click on Assign to Explorer so that we can finalize our glyph registry. So I've assigned this one. As you can see, this has a relatively low generation count of 104. Let's assign the next from the pool. So this one has, 127, slightly higher. This one dies out after 139. Well, it's nothing to write home about, 72 and all that. This area here, manual sequence entry, is actually for those of you who might prefer to build their own mining scripts. You can then simply enter your pattern here as a binary string or as an RLE code. The UI automatically translates between the two. Mind you, our glyphs live exclusively on the 16 by 16 grid, so you have to enter strings that are exactly 256 characters long. Once the Explorer unit is finished evolving your pattern, you're ready to submit your glyph, provided that this particular pattern has not been found yet and belongs therefore to someone else. Let's bring up previously registered glyphs here. As you can see, so for example this one, let me copy this one. If I enter this here, the UI checks in the background stating that, okay, this one is a known pattern, it's called Magenta Mutiny, it belongs to hash 0 and it will prevent you from submitting this. It does all that in the background. If you're satisfied with your pattern, give it a cool or wacky or sinister name, but please keep it PG-13. And then hit Submit Glyph. You will have to, yeah, exactly, enter a name here. Let's call it Test Glyph 17, for example. Submit Glyph. Okay, cool. And once you move back to the glyphs registered, you see your glyph submitted here. Congratulations. Now, if you want to battle this pattern, click on the link Adversarial Conflict Engine here. This will bring up the actual battle engine that you've seen at the beginning of the video. Click on the large black area in the middle and bring up the selection screen. You can either set up single matches between two glyphs or entire tournaments. There's two variants to it, round robin style and knockout bracket style. Depends on what you want to do. Once you click on proceed, you will be brought to the glyph selection screen. You can click on any of these glyphs and swap them out for whatever you like. For example, this one, let's bring in the test glyph, just shown you, test glyph 17, and we hit engage. So, congratulations, we've now set up a tournament and glyph 17 is part of it. So if you want to mine your own Conway glyphs and battle them on the Adversarial Conway engine, feel free to create an account. It's quick, it's easy and free, there's no ads or spam involved. We will not use your email address to send you any unsolicited email whatsoever. If you want to be kept up to date on what's happening here with the Hashwar project, you can sign up to our newsletter, but that is a completely separate step, completely separate from the login. I hope you enjoyed it.